Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome to this brief little video I have right here, which is to inform the people of how actually to submit your craft for a subscriber craft review. So what you're seeing right now is the first ship I ever reviewed on this channel, the HMNZ Tanifa, fighting one of the most recent ones, the Octavia. Now, how these two ships, I believe, were submitted in slightly different ways, but we'll get to that in a second. I'm making this video partially because people keep asking me how to submit craft for subscriber review, and it's not that hard to figure out. I don't know, it takes all of 2 seconds for me to tell someone, but I figured I'd have a video dedicated to it so people know for sure how to do. So here it is. And the first things first is the criteria for craft to being reviewed. So there's this is something I haven't really talked about that much, at least in a public sense, and that is the craft. There are limits to what I can or am willing to review, so I'm going to set some limits right here. So the first thing is that there is a 30,000 block limit. Like, if your craft is over 30,000 blocks, it will not be reviewed. Actually, I just want to double check right here. Yeah, so the very first ship I reviewed right here, the Tanifa, is well under that limit. It's not even 20,000 blocks, so well acceptable as an example. And this is because in order to review a craft properly, I do combat test it, like what you're seeing right here, actually. So, and if a ship is too large, it just lags my computer. My computer is pretty good, but it's not that good. Like, anything over 30k starts to make her chug a bit. So, none of that, please. I'm not interested in gigantic ships. I'm not interested in how big you can build, and neither are most people, actually. We're interested in how well you can build. Quality over quantity, in terms of blocks. And the second rule is that only one craft can be submitted at a time, so you can't just fling all your ships in a collection at me and say, review that please. No, I'm not going to do that. Pick the ship you want reviewed most badly, and I will happily review it in due time. That's how it goes. And a few people have already had more than one craft reviewed by me. I think Propaskor and Razul are two people who've had multiple ships reviewed by myself. And that's because they've only submitted one at a time, so they were patient. They waited nicely for me to get on with it and chug through various submissions before I got round to them again. So that's fair enough. And since the list is based, the order I review craft is based on time of submission, so earlier stuff gets reviewed first. That's the most fair I can make it. And anyway, we'll get more onto that in a little bit. Rule number 3, keep the exploits to an absolute minimum. So, nothing outright buggy. So I believe at the time of this video being recorded, there is an exploit with advanced cannon proximity fuses, in that they can allow certain shell types to completely bypass shields. That is an exploit, and not having that, it's not a good craft if it has to cheat. So, none of that. And so, yeah, nothing outright buggy, and if you're using an exploit, particularly with spin blocks, it should be for aesthetic purposes only. So I think there was one person who sent a plane to me. Like, a very good plane, by the way. It's like a fun thing. I had fun, playing with it. But, it's essentially jamming almost 300 little missile bomblets into a tiny, tiny craft, all using spin blocks, so none of that, please. That's not cool. That's not kosher. And rule number 4 is, and a lot of people might have a trouble with this, well, a problem with this, I guess, is no lure. No lure coding to make your craft do stuff. And that's because I have to admit, this is entirely my own bias. I'm not fond of even the idea of lure. I don't think it really has a place in this game, simply because for people who don't know how to code, it's utterly useless. You can't use it, and for the people who do, it can be overpowered as hell. Like, if you want to see how overpowered it can be, there is a craft on the workshop called the Ninja Particle Shotgun by Draba, and that runs almost entirely on lure, and it is unstoppable. So, none of that. when reviewing these craft, I want to see how well you can build within the limits set by the game itself, and not how well you can code, because honestly you can get lured to do almost anything. And like, one thing, I don't code myself. I can't look at your code and say, that's good code. I can just look at it and say, like, well, you are a space wizard who has managed to make the craft do things it otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, none of that, please. And the final rule, rule number 5, is finished craft only. No works in progress, and that's quite clear and simple, really. There's not much point in me... Admittedly, that could be very useful for some people, just for me to review a craft they're building, give feedback on what they've done already so they can make the finished product better. But on the other hand, it's not fair to all those people who are willing to send in finalized craft. And to be perfectly honest, there's no really such thing as a finished craft in From the Depths, because you can keep tinkering with them endlessly, and frankly the game isn't finished yet, so how can the craft be finished? Okay, so that's the 5 rules. It's just a 30k block limit, only one craft at a time, no exploits please, no lure, and finished craft only. And now we get onto the fun bit, how to submit your craft. And there's 2 broad categories of how to do this. One is do what a lot of people are doing anyway. I was kind of trying to put a stop to it when it first showed up, but honestly I've given up on that because people do it anyway and there's not much harm in it, and that is to post a link in the comments to the Steam Workshop page of the craft you want to submit. So you put it on the workshop, comment in the comments section saying, hi, I'd like you to review my craft, here is the link to my craft, and away we go. So make sure, the only real thing I ask is that make sure it is a Steam Workshop link only. Any other kind of link I will not tolerate. It will not be rescued from the spam filter, which is very good at catching those, by the way. And so, that's one way to do it, and the other way is to send me the blueprint file directly, and there are 3 ways to do this. The first one is to use Facebook Messenger. I've had, I think, 2 people do that so far, and to do that you go onto the BorderWise Facebook page, linked down in the description, and you message me on that and say, hi, here's the blueprint file, can you review it please, and like, I will happily review it if it fits the aforementioned criteria. Same thing on the From the Depths official forum. Private message me on that. Say, hi, I'd like to review my thing, and I will happily review it, aforementioned criteria. And third way to do that is private message on Discord. And again, the link to my Discord server will be in the description. So, like, even if you have nothing to submit, come join us and hang out. It's a good time. We've got a good mix of people there. We talk about FTD and swap blueprints all the time. So even if I'm not available to review something and you don't want a video review of what you've got, there's other people on there who will most likely be happy to give feedback on whatever it is you're doing. So it's a good idea. I do recommend. And now that's basically it. It's the criteria and how to submit it, and I will finish off essentially with a disclaimer, is that this list is quite long at the moment and it's probably only going to get longer, so please be patient once your craft has been submitted. It could be quite some time before I actually get around to making a video of it. Suffice to say, like, when I receive a craft, I tend to look at it almost immediately and form most of my opinions right then. So, but yeah, it could be, I don't know, anything between, depending on how I decide to do it, because I do jump around the list a bit. Anytime I do a double review, I pick the craft that's next in line, and then pick a craft somewhere in the list that's similar enough to that craft to be compared and contrasted with it. So, you never know, you might end up seeing your craft a little bit earlier than you might expect, but no guarantees. The good news is that because the wait can be so long, you have plenty of time to fiddle and update with your craft, and just be sure, if you do that, to let me know when you have done that. Essentially send me the most updated version, so I don't make a fool of myself when I make the actual review. Okay, and as I mentioned before, all necessary links are in the comments, and the poor Tonifar got absolutely wrecked, which is kind of what I expected really. Octavia has a nasty torpedo barrage. Is she actually sinking? Yep, she is despawning as we speak. She's taking a while. She's a big girl. So yeah, that's basically it. So you know what the craft is meant to be like, and you know how to submit it. So feel free and be patient, please. So I think that about wraps it up. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Farewell.